I feel the grain of the wooden table beneath my fingertips, tracing the lines while keeping my face neutral. Across from me, Camila sits with perfect posture in her tailored gray suit, not a strand of hair out of place. Her attorney, Griffin Leary, lounges beside her with that infuriating smirk I've grown to despise over the past 3 months. The divorce hearing has dragged on for hours, the judge's monotone voice blending with the soft hum of the air conditioning. My throat is dry, but I don't reach for the water. I don't want them to see my hand trembling. Your Honor, Griffin says, his voice dripping with artificial respect, we've presented all the evidence. Mrs. Rhodes has built her company from the ground up. My client deserves the fruits of her labor. I watch Camila's lips curl into a subtle smile. 12 years of marriage, and I still remember when that smile used to be for me. Griffin leans forward, lowering his voice as if sharing a secret. Enjoy your new life, he whispers. You're walking out of here with nothing. Camila's ice blue eyes meet mine across the table. You should have been a better husband, she says, just loud enough for me to hear. The judge shuffles his papers, peering over his reading glasses. Before I make my ruling, does the respondent have any final statements? My attorney gives me a small nod. This is it. The moment everything changes. I feel strangely calm as I reach down for my worn leather briefcase. The one Camila got me for our 5th anniversary before her company took off, before she decided I wasn't enough anymore. Actually, Your Honor, I do have something to present. Griffin rolls his eyes. Your Honor, this is highly irregular at this stage. I'll decide what's irregular in my courtroom, Mr. Leary, the judge says, his eyebrows raised. I pull out a thick manila folder, the one I've been building for months. Late nights. Sleepless mornings. Connecting dots that Camila thought no one would ever notice. Your Honor, I'd like to submit these documents as evidence. The bailiff takes the folder and passes it to the judge. Camila's expression doesn't change, but I notice her hand twitch slightly on the table. Griffin's smirk falters for just a moment as he exchanges a glance with her. What is this? The judge asks, opening the folder. Financial records, Your Honor. Receipts. Bank statements. Emails. The judge flips through the pages, his expression growing more serious with each turn. Camila's porcelain composure begins to crack. A slight flush creeps up her neck, her breathing quickens. Griffin's fingers start tapping nervously against the table. Mr. Leary, Ms. Rhodes, the judge says, looking up from the documents, would you care to explain some of these transactions? Griffin stands quickly. Your Honor, these documents haven't been properly submitted during discovery. We haven't had time to review. That's because they were hidden, I say quietly. Just like everything else. The flush on Camila's face deepens to an angry red. Her eyes, once cold and confident, now burn with something between rage and fear. The judge continues thumbing through the folder. Offshore accounts? Payments to non-existent vendors? He stops at one page, studying it closely. And what exactly is consulting fee supposed to mean here? Griffin whispers urgently to Camila, who shakes her head sharply. The confident power couple from an hour ago has vanished, replaced by 2 people who look like they're watching their carefully constructed world crumble. Your Honor, Griffin attempts, these allegations are completely unfounded. My client runs a legitimate. I'd like to call a 30-minute recess, the judge interrupts, closing the folder. I need to review these documents thoroughly. As the judge leaves the bench, Camila's eyes lock onto mine. Gone is the woman who coldly handed me divorce papers over breakfast, who informed me I'd be leaving our marriage with nothing after 12 years of supporting her dreams. In her place sits someone I barely recognize, someone cornered, desperate. What have you done? She mouths silently across the table. I don't answer. I don't need to. The weight of the folder in the judge's hands speaks louder than any words I could offer. Months of digging through financial records, finding patterns Camila never bothered to hide because she never thought I was smart enough to look. As they hurriedly whisper to each other, I sit back in my chair and wait. For the first time since this nightmare began, I feel something close to peace. The clock on the wall ticks forward. 30 minutes until everything changes. I wake up at precisely 6:45, just like any other day. Sunlight filters through the curtains Camila insisted on buying last spring, some Italian fabric that cost more than my first car. For a moment, everything feels normal. Then I remember the tension from the past few months. The late nights, the cold shoulders, the business calls that mysteriously end when I walk into a room. I pull myself out of bed, following the scent of coffee to the kitchen. Camila stands by the counter in her silk robe, phone in one hand, manila envelope in the other. She doesn't look up when I enter. Morning, I offer, reaching for a mug. I spoke with my attorney this morning, she says, finally setting down her phone. Her voice is steady, rehearsed. She slides the envelope across the marble countertop. These are for you. My fingers trace the edge of the envelope, heart pounding against my ribs. I already know what's inside, but seeing it makes it real. Divorce papers, Camila's elegant signature already dried on the dotted line. You're giving me nothing, I say quietly, scanning the documents. Not the house. Not my share of the business. Nothing. It's the end, she replies, sipping her coffee. You knew this was coming. I look up at her, searching for any sign of the woman I married 12 years ago. The one who used to laugh when we burned dinner, who would wake me in the middle of the night to watch thunderstorms from our porch. I helped you build Rhodes Interiors, I say, my voice steadier than I expected. For 12 years, I handled your admin work, your bookkeeping, your correspondence, your schedules. I didn't ask for a salary. I didn't ask for credit. Camila sets down her cup with just enough force to show irritation without spilling a drop. And I appreciated that. But you couldn't keep up. She adjusts her watch, not meeting my eyes. I evolved. You didn't. The words hit like a physical blow. 12 years of supporting her dreams, of being her biggest cheerleader, of putting her ambitions before mine, reduced to you couldn't keep up. You should review those papers with your own attorney, she continues, gathering her phone and car keys. Though I doubt they'll have any objections. The terms are quite standard. Standard? Nothing about handing over everything I've helped build feels standard. When did you decide this? I ask, the papers heavy in my hand. She pauses at the doorway, perfectly framed like one of her designer room layouts. Does it matter? It matters to me. That's your problem, she says, slipping into her heels. You always cared too much about the wrong things. The front door closes behind her with a soft click. I stand alone in her kitchen, a kitchen I helped design 3 years ago when Rhodes Interiors landed its first major corporate client. Something inside me breaks. Not my heart, that's been breaking in slow motion for months. This is different. This is the quiet snap of something I didn't know could break. My perception of our marriage. My understanding of who we were. I pour the coffee down the drain and walk to my office, the smallest room in the house, tucked away in the back corner where clients won't see it during Camila's home showcase parties. Inside, I find evidence of her planning. The filing cabinet drawer slightly ajar. The missing external hard drive. The empty spaces on the bookshelf where our financial records used to be. She'd planned this meticulously, probably for months. The same attention to detail she gives her design projects had been applied to dismantling our marriage. I sit at my desk, divorce papers spread before me, and stare at her signature. The elegant swoops and curves I once found beautiful now seem calculating. 12 years together, and this is how it ends? With a manila envelope and empty drawers while I slept upstairs? I pick up my phone, hovering over my attorney's contact, but something stops me. A slow, burning feeling begins to replace the shock. Not anger, something colder, more focused. She thinks I'll fold. Sign the papers, walk away with nothing, disappear from her carefully curated life like an outdated piece of furniture. But she's forgetting something important. I know her business from the inside out. Every client, every vendor, every transaction. I've been invisible in plain sight for years, watching how she operates, how she builds her empire. I put down the phone and turn to my computer. If Camila wants war, I'll give her one she never saw coming. She thinks I'm walking away with nothing? I'll make sure she understands just how much I'm worth. I start by making 2 calls. First to Zaire, an old friend who works as a paralegal at a small firm, then to Noah, a tech specialist who owes me a favor. I need access to old files. Passwords. Accounts. Camila Rhodes is about to learn that standard terms don't apply when you've shared your life with someone you've underestimated for 12 years. As I wait for Zaire to call back, memories flood my mind. 12 years reduced to documents and signatures. Had it all been a lie? I still remember the night we met. A gallery opening in the city. She stood by a minimalist sculpture, explaining the artist's vision to a small crowd. I was just there for the free wine, completely out of my element. But something about her confidence drew me in. The way her hands moved when she spoke. The certainty in her voice. You're the only person who actually looked at the art before the wine table, she'd said when I approached. 3 months later, she told me about her dream to start an interior design business. Rhodes Interiors. We sketched the logo on a pizza box at 2 in the morning. I still have that box somewhere, probably in the storage boxes she never bothered to organize. I'm going to make this happen, she'd said, eyes bright with ambition. And I believed her. More than that, I wanted to help her make it happen. So I built her first website. I'm no tech genius, but I taught myself enough HTML to create something decent. Something she could show potential clients. The pride in her eyes when she saw it made the 3 sleepless nights worth it. I made cold calls to potential clients. Set up meetings. Crafted emails that sounded professional and established, even though Rhodes Interiors was operating out of our tiny apartment. At networking events, I stayed in the background, making sure everything ran smoothly while Camila charmed the room. I was her shadow, her support, her foundation. During her first major business party, I stood behind the bar, pouring drinks and watching her work the room. No one remembered my name, but I didn't care. Camila was shining, and that was enough. "We're a team," she used to say. Back when we were still we. I built half her business with her. My name wasn't on the logo, but my fingerprints were on everything. I fixed the squeaky stairs in her first office. Painted the walls that soft blue she liked. Learned QuickBooks to manage her finances. Drove across the state to pick up a vintage desk she'd found online. Late nights in the office, I'd bring her dinner, and sometimes we'd eat together on the floor, surrounded by fabric samples and floor plans. "When we make it big," she'd say, "we're going to have a house with a view." We did get that house with a view. But somewhere along the way, we became she, and I didn't notice the transition until it was too late. I'm pulled from my memories when Noah calls back. "I can help you access those old files," he says. "Might take a few days though." People don't often want to help the husband in these situations. "I'm not just the husband," I reply, a new resolve hardening within me. "I'm the co-creator of everything she's trying to take." After hanging up, I start gathering evidence. I pull out old laptops she thought were dead. Stacks of papers she stuffed in drawers. Forgotten USB drives with backup files she never deleted. Camila was always meticulous with designs, with client-facing work. But the background operations? The finances? The emails? She left those to me, never bothering to learn the systems I put in place. That was her first mistake. The doorbell rings. It's Zaire, looking exactly like he did in college, just with better clothes and more tired eyes. "You know she's going to fight back," he says, setting his messenger bag on the kitchen counter. "And from what you've told me, she has resources." "So do I reply, pulling out a stack of files. "She just doesn't know it yet." Zaire looks through the papers, his expression growing more serious with each page. "This is comprehensive. 12 years of being ignored," I say, pouring us both coffee. "Gives you a lot of time to observe. What exactly are you looking for? Proof that you contributed to the business? That's not going to be enough." I shake my head. "I think there's more. The last few years things haven't added up. New clients that never appear in the portfolio. Money moving through accounts I'm not supposed to know about. Late night calls she takes in the guest room." "You think she's having an affair?" Zaire asks. "Maybe. But I think it's worse than that." I open my laptop, showing him a spreadsheet of transactions. "I think something isn't right with the business. And I think that's why she wants me gone so quickly." Zaire studies the screen, then looks up at me. "Are you sure you want to go down this road? If you're right, this isn't just about your divorce anymore." I think about the coldness in Camila's eyes this morning. The casual way she dismissed our 12 years together. The meticulously planned exit, designed to leave me with nothing. "I'm sure," I say. "It's time to see what Rhodes Interiors is really built on." Zaire nods, pulling out his own laptop. "Then let's get to work." The nights blend together, each one long and sleepless. I've transformed our living room into a war room, papers scattered across the coffee table, laptop constantly humming, empty coffee cups collecting in small clusters. This is day 5 since Camila handed me the divorce papers. 5 days of digging, searching, connecting dots. I run my hands over my face, feeling the stubble I haven't bothered to shave. The clock on the wall reads 3:17 in the morning. Camila hasn't been home in 3 days. Business trip, according to the terse text she sent. Convenient timing. I turn back to the USB drives I found in her home office closet, tucked inside an old shoebox beneath winter scarves. Drives she probably forgot existed. The oldest dates back to the first year of Rhodes Interiors. "Let's see what you were hiding," I mutter, plugging in another drive. The files populate on my screen, hundreds of documents Camila had shoved into folders she likely hadn't touched since the early days. Client invoices, vendor contracts, expense reports. Patterns emerged that Camila never bothered to conceal. She didn't think I'd look. Or maybe she didn't think I'd understand what I was seeing. "Well, that's interesting," I whisper, opening an invoice folder. Blank receipts. Hundreds of them, sorted by vendor. Pre-filled templates ready to be completed. A template system for fake expenses? I find payments to suppliers that don't exist. Expenses logged twice on different dates. Backdated invoices for projects that never happened. Money funneling to shell companies with unfamiliar names. My phone buzzes with a text from Noah. Got those passwords you asked for? She never changed them. Amateur move. With Noah's help, I gain access to bank statements, emails, account logs from the past 5 years. The digital trail Camila left is even more damning than the paper one. I find offshore transfers, small at first, then larger. Thousands of dollars moving through a series of accounts before disappearing. Around 4 in the morning, I discover the payments to Elliot Rice. Elliot, the consultant Camila was always a little too friendly with at industry events. The one whose name she'd mention casually, too casually in conversation. The payments started small, a few $100s labeled as consulting fees. But they grew. 5,000. 10,000. Regular payments to a man whose actual contribution to roads interiors I've never been able to pinpoint. Not just a business partner then, I mutter, feeling a strange detachment as I add this betrayal to the pile. It's not even the infidelity that bothers me most now, it's that she paid him with money I helped her earn. By sunrise, I've uncovered fake charitable write-offs. Donations to groups that don't exist, listed as tax deductions. Client overbilling. Double invoicing for the same services. I lean back on the couch, surrounded by evidence of Camila's fraud. The scale of it is staggering. This isn't just creative accounting or cutting corners. This is systematic, deliberate fraud. My phone rings. Zer. You sound terrible, he says when I answer. Haven't slept. Find anything? I laugh, a hollow sound even to my own ears. Oh, I found everything. She's been running a shell game with her business finances for years. How bad? Tax evasion. Fake invoices. Money laundering, I think. And she's been paying some guy named Elliot Rice substantial, consulting fees that I'm pretty sure have nothing to do with consulting. There's silence on the other end of the line. Then, this is serious. You sure you want to go there? This isn't just divorce territory anymore. I look down at a photo of Camila and me from 5 years ago, still sitting on the side table. Her smile, once so genuine to my eyes, now seems calculating. Was she already planning this back then? She tried to walk away with everything, I say quietly. 12 years of my life. My contributions. My future. She was going to leave me with nothing. Meeting her in kind doesn't always bring peace, Zer cautions. I'm not looking for peace. I close the laptop. I'm looking for justice. We agree to meet later that day at a coffee shop downtown. Neutral territory, away from the house where every room now feels like a crime scene. As I shower and change clothes for the first time in 2 days, I catch my reflection in the bathroom mirror. I barely recognize myself. The dark circles under my eyes. The grim set of my mouth. The hardness that wasn't there a week ago. Camila wanted to remake me as the villain in her story, the husband who couldn't keep up, who wasn't worthy of the empire she built. But what if her empire is built on quicksand? What if the successful businesswoman she presents to the world is just an elaborate facade? I grab my keys and the external drive containing copies of everything I've found. It's time to show Zer exactly what kind of business Roads Interiors really is. And then it will be time to decide what Camila deserves to keep. The downtown coffee shop buzzes with mid-morning energy. Business people typing frantically on laptops. College students with textbooks spread across tables. None of them aware of the bomb I'm about to drop. Zer sits across from me, his expression growing more serious as he flips through the printed files I've brought. Are you absolutely certain you want to go down this road? He asks, keeping his voice low. This is serious. This is no longer just about your marriage. I take a sip of coffee that's grown cold. I know. No, I don't think you do. Zer leans forward. This is fraud, tax evasion, possibly money laundering. If you present this in divorce court, it doesn't just affect your settlement. It could trigger a criminal investigation. I look out the window watching pedestrians hurry past. Normal people with normal lives. A week ago that was me. Or so I thought. She planned to leave me with nothing, I say finally. After 12 years. This won't just hurt Camila. It could destroy her. Zer taps the papers. And once you start this, you can't control where it ends. Something cold settles in my chest. Not quite doubt. Not quite resolve. Something in between. What would you do? I ask. Zer sighs, rubbing his temple. I'm not in your position. But I know revenge rarely feels as good as you think it will. It's not about revenge, I argue, though even to my ears the words ring hollow. It's about justice. Just be sure, he says, handing back the files. Because there's no going back from this. Back at the house, I spread everything across the dining room table, the one Camila insisted we needed for entertaining clients. We never used it except to stack mail. Noah arrives around noon with more data. Account logs going back 3 years. Email chains between Camila and suppliers. Messages with timestamps that don't match the invoices. She wasn't just cheating you, Noah says, scrolling through a spreadsheet. She was cheating everyone. Clients. Vendors. The IRS. Built her success on a house of cards, I murmur. Noah nods, pointing to a series of transactions. Look at these transfers. Same amounts, moved between accounts on the same days. Classic layering technique. Money laundering? Looks like it. Noah pushes his glasses up. Question is, where was the money coming from originally? I think about Rhodes Interior's rapid growth over the last 5 years. The sudden influx of high-profile clients. The expansion to commercial projects when Camila had always focused on residential. I need to know everything, I tell Noah. Every transaction. Every client. Every partner. He gives me a concerned look. You sure? Some things you can't unknow. I'm sure. Days blur into nights. Zaire provides legal context for what we're finding. Noah digs deeper into the digital trail. I connect it all to what I know about the business, the clients, the projects, the timeline. Camila isn't just running a side scheme. Rhodes Interiors itself seems built on fraudulent practices. 2 weeks after receiving the divorce papers, I find myself back in court for a preliminary hearing. Camila sits across from me, composed as ever. But I notice things I wouldn't have before, the slight tightness around her eyes. The way her fingers tap silently against her thigh when she thinks no one is watching. The air feels heavy, almost suffocating. The judge enters and the final hearing begins. Delilah Chin, my attorney, gives me a subtle nod. It's time. Camila and Griffin look less confident today. Perhaps they've realized I'm not rolling over as expected. Before we conclude, the judge says, "Are there any final submissions?" This is it. The point of no return. I slide my folder across to the judge, feeling the weight of weeks of investigation in my hands. Your Honor, I'd like to submit these documents for consideration. The judge accepts the folder, beginning to flip through the pages. Inside, records of tax evasion, investor fraud, fake charitable write-offs. Bank statements showing offshore transfers. Invoices to shell companies. The payments to Elliot Rice. Camila's face drains of color as she realizes what I've done. Griffin leans over, whispering frantically in her ear. The judge looks up sharply. Ms. Rhodes, can you explain this transfer to an account in the Cayman Islands? Griffin jumps in. Your Honor, these are simply business expenses related to. These are private matters, Camila interrupts, her voice tight. They have no place here. The judge's expression hardens. I'll be the judge of what belongs in my courtroom, Ms. Rhodes. He closes the folder. I'm calling a recess to review these documents properly. We'll reconvene in 1 hour. As the judge exits, Camila's eyes lock with mine across the room. No longer cold. No longer superior. For the first time since I've known her, I see real fear in her expression. Delilah leans over to me. The tide just turned, she whispers. Whatever happens next, you've changed the game. I nod, a strange sense of calm washing over me. I've spent weeks preparing for this moment, yet nothing could have prepared me for how it feels. Not satisfaction. Not quite relief. Just the quiet certainty that Camila Rhodes is about to face consequences she never saw coming. The house feels different when I return after court. Larger. Emptier. I move through the living room, touching familiar objects that suddenly feel like they belong to someone else. The leather couch we argued over for weeks before buying. The art prints Camila insisted would elevate the space. The coffee table where I'd first laid out the divorce papers 2 weeks ago. My phone rings, unknown number. I answer cautiously. Back off. The voice is male, unfamiliar, slightly muffled. Now. The line goes dead before I can respond. I stare at the screen, heart pounding in my throat. I try to trace the call, but it's a burner phone. Untraceable. My first warning. Sleep doesn't come easily that night. I drift in and out of consciousness, jerking awake at every creak of the house settling. Around 3 in the morning, I give up and head to the kitchen for water. Standing by the window, glass in hand, I notice a car I don't recognize parked across the street. Dark sedan, lights off. just sitting there in the pre-dawn darkness. I watch for 10 minutes but it doesn't move. When I check again at sunrise, it's gone. My phone chimes with a text from Delilah just after 8. Camila's team has filed a motion to settle. They're offering the house and some cash. Meeting at my office at 11 to discuss a settlement offer. After months of Camila insisting I deserved nothing, now she's willing to give me the house? The timing isn't coincidental. Delilah's office is on the 12th floor of a downtown building, all glass and chrome and fake plants. When I arrive, she's standing at her window, frowning. "Someone broke in last night," she says by way of greeting. I scan the office. Nothing looks obviously disturbed. Took anything? That's the strange part. They rifled through files but nothing's missing. At least, nothing obvious. She gestures to a chair. "The settlement offer is better than we expected." Suspiciously better. She slides a document across the desk. I skim the terms. The house. A decent cash sum. No mention of the business or the evidence I've presented. "They're scared," I say. Delilah nods. "Very. But there's something else happening here. This break-in, your phone call, the settlement offer coming right now. They're not just trying to end your divorce case. They're trying to bury something bigger." On my way home, I notice my bank account has been frozen. No warning, no explanation. A call to the bank yields only vague references to a security flag. 3 hours and 2 managers later, it's unfrozen with apologies for the system error. Not a coincidence. That evening, a text from Zaire, "Guy in black car followed me home from work. Be careful." I start looking over my shoulder more. Checking my rearview mirror on my way to meetings. Parking in well-lit areas. Small adjustments that become my new normal. 3 days after the court hearing, an email arrives from an address I don't recognize. Subject line, "Check the attachment before it's too late." My first instinct is to delete it as spam or malware. But something about the timing makes me pause. I run it through Noah's security program before opening. Inside, photos of Camila and Griffin at a coffee shop with a woman I don't recognize. Smartly dressed, no-nonsense haircut, taking notes in a small black notebook. I forward the photos to Noah, asking if he can identify the woman. His response comes within an hour: Thea Morgan. Special Agent, Financial Crimes Division, FBI. My stomach drops. FBI. This isn't just about our divorce anymore. Another text from Noah follows. Sources say Rhodes Interiors is under federal surveillance. Possible money laundering investigation. Pieces start falling into place. Camila's desperation to settle quickly. The break-in at Delilah's office. The warning call. The sudden surveillance. Camila isn't just fighting me, she's fighting to stay ahead of something much bigger. My phone vibrates with a new text, this time from an unknown number. "You don't want to be part of this." I stare at the message for a long moment before typing back. Too late. I turn off my phone and pour myself a drink, watching the evening light fade through the windows of the house that might soon be officially mine. The house I'm not sure I even want anymore. The silence is broken by my laptop chiming with an incoming video call. "No. Found something you need to see," he says, his face serious in the blue glow of his computer screen. Encrypted emails between Camila and someone named Jonas Wick. I've only decrypted a few, but they mention offshore accounts, coded transfers, and cleaning the books. "Who's Jonas Wick?" I ask. "Working on that," Noah replies. But whoever he is, he and Camila have gone to great lengths to keep their communications private. And from what I've decrypted so far, we may have just scratched the surface of what Rhodes Interiors is really doing. I close my eyes, suddenly exhausted. What began as a fight for what was rightfully mine has evolved into something far more dangerous. But I've come too far to back down now. "Keep digging," I tell Noah. "I need to know everything before the final hearing." Delilah's office still shows signs of the break-in. Files hastily reshuffled. Drawers not quite closed. The lingering sense that strangers have invaded a private space. "Thanks for coming on short notice," she says, gesturing to a chair across from her desk. The circles under her eyes suggest she hasn't been sleeping much either. "You said it was urgent." She nods, pulling a sealed manila envelope from her drawer. "This came through a secure courier this morning. From a trusted source." I take the envelope, feeling its weight. "What is it?" "Open it," she says simply. Inside is a notarized affidavit, signed by K. Duran. The name sounds vaguely familiar. "Griffin's junior assistant," Delilah explains, seeing my confusion. "She's been with his firm for about 3 years." I scan the document, my heartbeat quickening with each paragraph. Kay's sworn statement outlines a pattern of fraud at Rhodes Interiors that extends far beyond what I'd discovered. Camila had been falsifying bids to overcharge clients, manipulating contracts after signing, redirecting kickbacks from large corporate contractors. And Griffin had known, had helped cover it up. This connects everything, I murmur, flipping through the pages. The shell companies, the offshore accounts, the payments to Elliot Rice. And it explains why the FBI is circling, Delilah adds. Agent Morgan in those photos, she's not just investigating on a hunch. They're closing in. I remember the FBI agent in the coffee shop photos, her notebook open as she spoke with Camila and Griffin. Not a chance meeting. An interview. How did Kay get this information? She's been Griffin's assistant. She's seen the paperwork, heard the conversations. Delilah takes off her glasses, rubbing the bridge of her nose. What matters is that her statement corroborates everything you've found plus more. And it's legally sworn. Is she willing to testify? Delilah's expression grows serious. That's the complicated part. She provided this affidavit, but she's terrified. Says she's already looking for a new job, planning to leave the state. My phone buzzes with a text. You don't want to be part of this. Same unknown number as before. I show it to Delilah. Second warning. She frowns. They're getting nervous. That settlement offer is looking more like hush money now. I'm not taking it. Are you sure? This is escalating beyond a divorce case. Federal agents are involved. I think about Camila's face when she handed me the divorce papers. The coldness in her voice. You knew this was coming. Had she planned not just to leave me, but to make me the fall guy if her schemes were discovered? I'm sure, I reply. I want everything on record. No settlements. No deals. Back home I call Noah, updating him on Kay's affidavit. That explains a lot, he says. I've decrypted more emails between Camila and Jonas Wick. It's worse than we thought. How much worse? They're discussing offshore accounts, coded transfers, something called cleaning the books. From what I can piece together, Wick is some kind of financial fixer. Helps people hide money, create paper trails, erase liabilities. So Rhodes Interiors isn't just cutting corners. It's a front for something bigger. Looks that way. Noah's voice drops. And there's something else. I did some digging on Elliot Rice, the guy getting those regular payments. Camila's lover, I say, the words feeling strange on my tongue. Maybe. But he's also got connections to people you don't want to be connected to. The kind who solve problems permanently. A chill runs through me. You think he's dangerous? I think you should be careful. This isn't just about money anymore. People who move this kind of cash, who have these kinds of connections, they don't like being exposed. After hanging up, I walk through the house, checking locks, closing blinds. Simple security measures that suddenly feel inadequate. I pour a drink and sit in the darkness of the living room, Kay's affidavit spread on the coffee table in front of me. The same table where this all began with divorce papers just weeks ago. How had I missed it? All these years, living with Camila, helping build her business. Had there always been this darkness beneath the surface? Or had success corrupted her gradually, one small compromise at a time? My phone buzzes again. I expect another warning, but instead it's Delilah. Final hearing scheduled for Monday. Judge wants to conclude this case. Monday. 4 days away. The endgame approaching faster than expected. I gather Kay's affidavit, adding it to my growing file of evidence. The FBI won't be far behind. When I present this in court, there's no telling what dominoes will fall. Camila. Griffin. Elliot Rice. Jonas Wick. A network I've only begun to unravel. I should be frightened. Perhaps I am, somewhere beneath the exhaustion and resolve. But mostly I feel a strange sense of clarity. For 12 years I lived in Camila's shadow. The supportive husband. The invisible partner. On Monday finally I will be seen. Monday arrives with the weight of inevitability. I walk into the courthouse feeling exhausted yet too stubborn to stop. The security guard nods in recognition. I've become a familiar face over these past weeks. The courtroom feels smaller today, more confined. I spot Camila immediately. She's wearing a charcoal suit, impeccably tailored as always, but her appearance has changed. The perfect composure she's maintained throughout our marriage and these proceedings shows cracks. Her skin has a grayish tinge, like she hasn't slept in days. Her hair, typically styled with precision, seems hastily arranged. Griffin sits beside her, his usual swagger diminished. His eyes dart around the room, landing briefly on me before quickly looking away. He leans over to whisper something to Camila, who shakes her head sharply. Delilah touches my arm. You ready for this? I nod. Been ready for weeks. Their settlement offer increased again last night. Significantly. She slides a paper toward me. They're desperate to end this quietly. I glance at the numbers. Is generous. More than generous. The house, substantial cash, even a percentage of Rhodes Interior's assessed value. Not interested, I say, pushing the paper back. You sure? Once we present everything today, there's no turning back. I think about the threats, the surveillance, the warnings. The break-in at Delilah's office. The FBI circling closer. I'm sure. The judge enters and we all rise. Judge Lawrence Bremer, 60-something with salt and pepper hair and reading glasses perched on the end of his nose. He's been fair throughout these proceedings, methodical in his approach. Let's conclude this matter, he says after the formalities. I understand both parties have final statements before I render my decision. Griffin stands first, buttoning his jacket with practiced ease. Despite everything, his voice projects confidence. Your Honor, we maintain that Ms. Rhodes deserves to retain all assets related to Rhodes Interiors, the business she built from the ground up. I watch him as he speaks, noting the slight tremor in his hands, the way his eyes don't quite meet the judge's. His usual smoothness now seems rehearsed, hollow. The settlement offer previously provided is more than generous, Griffin continues. My client is willing to grant the house and a substantial financial package to bring this matter to a swift conclusion. And what about the documentation submitted at our last hearing? Judge Bremer asks, glancing at me over his reading glasses. Griffin's jawline tightens. We believe those documents have been taken out of context, Your Honor. Business operations can appear irregular to someone without proper financial training. The judge makes a non-committal sound, then turns to me. And your response? I stand, feeling strangely calm. I'm not accepting the settlement, Your Honor. Griffin's face flushes. Camila's knuckles turn white as she grips the edge of the table. Furthermore, I continue, I have additional documentation to submit. Objection. Griffin's voice cracks slightly. This is simply a delay tactic. We've had adequate time for discovery. Judge Bremer raises a hand, silencing him. This is my courtroom, Mr. Leary. I'll decide what's relevant. He nods to me. Proceed. I approach with a thicker folder than before, containing everything. The original evidence, Kay's affidavit, the decrypted emails Noah recovered. Camila looks panicked now, her breathing shallow, her fingers digging into the wooden table. Griffin is frantically whispering to her, but she seems beyond hearing. The judge opens the folder, his expression growing more serious as he pages through the documents. These emails, he says after a moment, linking Ms. Rhodes to Jonas Wick. And these shell corporations funneling money overseas. He looks up at Camila. These are very serious matters, Ms. Rhodes. Griffin jumps in. Your Honor, these are business matters unrelated to the divorce proceedings. They have no bearing on. They have every bearing, the judge interrupts, on the distribution of assets that may have been acquired through fraudulent means. He continues reviewing the documents, pausing at Kay's affidavit. And this statement from Ms. Duran corroborates transactions that align precisely with these bank records. Camila leans over, whispering something to me that only I can hear. You have no idea what you've done. I turn slightly toward her. I think I do. The judge closes the folder with finality. Given the nature of these documents, I am obligated to forward them to the appropriate authorities. He looks between us. As for the divorce proceedings, I'm calling a 30-minute recess to review all materials before rendering my decision. As he exits, the courtroom erupts in whispers. Delilah squeezes my shoulder. You buried her, she says quietly. I watch Camila and Griffin huddled together, their faces drawn with fear. The power dynamic has completely reversed. The woman who once told me I deserved nothing now looks like she might lose everything. But the victory feels hollow, different than I imagined. I thought I'd feel triumphant, vindicated. Instead, I feel a strange emptiness, as if I've won a prize I no longer want. The countdown to the judge's decision begins. The week after the final hearing passes in a fog. I move through the days mechanically, sleeping too much or not at all, eating when I remember to. The house, officially mine now according to the judge's ruling, feels too large, too empty, too full of ghosts. 7 days after the hearing, Camila's arrest makes the news. I see it first on my phone, a notification from a local news app. I almost scroll past it before the headline registers. Rhodes Interior's owner arrested on fraud charges. There's a photo of Camila being led away in handcuffs, her face partially obscured but unmistakable. Her mugshot follows, harsh lighting, hollow eyes, the ghost of her perfect composure. The story builds over the following days. Rhodes Interiors portrayed as a suspected front for money laundering and fraud. Financial crimes investigations. Client funds misappropriated. Tax evasion. Wire fraud. The elegant design business that Camila built, that we built together, characterized as an elaborate criminal enterprise. Her assets are frozen. The business collapses almost overnight. Clients distance themselves faster than federal agents can seize files. Projects are abandoned mid-completion. Employees leave en masse, scrubbing Rhodes Interiors from their resumes. Griffin is disbarred within days, his name linked to Kay's affidavit and the mounting evidence. His firm distances itself, claiming they had no knowledge of his actions. Former colleagues suddenly can't recall working closely with him. Jonas Wick, the shadowy financial fixer from the emails, vanishes without a trace. His name appears in a few early articles, then disappears from coverage as if he never existed. The judge's final ruling arrives by courier. I get the house, the cars, and a substantial portion of what remains of Camila's accounts after federal seizures. On paper, it's a victory. Everything I fought for and more. So why does it feel so hollow? I stand in the living room on the first night after the ruling, staring at the space that's now unequivocally mine. The furniture is still here. The couch we chose together, the bookshelves I built, the art Camila selected. But everything feels foreign, like I'm standing in a stranger's home. I pour a drink and wander from room to room. The kitchen where she handed me divorce papers. The office where I uncovered her fraud. The bedroom we shared for 12 years. Memories lurk in every corner. The good ones hurt more than the bad. I remember the night we moved in, sleeping on a mattress on the floor because our bed hadn't been delivered. The Sunday mornings making pancakes before Rhodes Interiors consumed our weekends. The arguments and reconciliations. The dreams we shared. Had any of it been real? Or had Camila always been planning, calculating, using me as a convenient support system until I wasn't needed anymore? I don't have the energy to sort through it all. Instead, I pack a small bag. Clothes, toothbrush, important documents. I look around one last time, then lock the door behind me. I drive north with no clear destination, just a need to be somewhere else. Somewhere without reminders. Without history. The coastal highway stretches ahead, dark except for my headlights. I drive until exhaustion forces me to stop at a motel with a flickering vacancy sign. The next morning I continue north. Towns blur together until I reach Pine Haven, a quiet coastal community I visited once years ago. Something about its remoteness appeals to me. I rent a small cabin near the beach, paying cash for the first month. The owner doesn't ask questions, just hands me the keys and points out the path to the shore. Inside it's basic but clean. A bedroom, bathroom, combined kitchen and living area. Simple furniture. No designer touches. Nothing that reminds me of Camila or the life we built. I unpack my meager belongings, then walk down to the beach. The air smells of salt and pine. Waves crash against the shore in a steady rhythm that drowns out my thoughts. I find a driftwood log and sit, watching the tide roll in. Camila's face appears in my mind, her smirk in court, her panic at the end. But strangely, it doesn't sting anymore. She's lost everything, her business, her money, her freedom. I walked away with more than she ever intended to give me. But sitting here, watching the endless ocean, none of that seems important. My phone buzzes in my pocket. Delilah with updates about the federal investigation, questions about whether I'll testify. I silence it without responding. There will be time for that later. For now, I just need to breathe. To exist in this moment, in this place where no one knows me as Camila's husband, or Rhodes Interiors' invisible partner, or the man who brought down a fraudulent business empire. Here, I'm just a man sitting by the ocean, watching the waves and feeling for the first time in months, something close to peace. Pine Haven embraces me in its quiet rhythm. I've been here 3 weeks now, and already the small coastal town feels more like home than the house Camila and I shared for years. My rented cabin sits on a bluff overlooking the ocean. Each morning, I wake to the sound of waves breaking against the shore. No alarm clocks. No urgent emails to answer. No spreadsheets to review for Camila's business meetings. For the first time in years, I don't have to be anywhere or fix anything for anyone. This morning, I carry my coffee down to the beach, finding a piece of driftwood smoothed by the tides. I sit and watch the water, mesmerized by its constant motion. Camila's face drifts into my thoughts, not the polished, perfect image she presented to clients and society, but how she looked in that final hearing. Desperate. Afraid. the mask finally slipping to reveal the truth beneath. But the memory doesn't sting like it used to. She's lost everything now, her business, her money, her freedom. Last I heard from Delilah, Camila was facing years in prison for financial fraud, money laundering, and tax evasion. She's been denied bail, deemed a flight risk due to her offshore accounts and international connections. I walked away with more than she ever intended to give me. The house. A substantial settlement. My dignity. Yet I find myself indifferent to these supposed victories. The tide comes in, washing around the driftwood where I sit. I lift my feet to avoid the cold water, watching as the ocean reclaims its territory inch by inch. Days in Pinehaven pass slowly, simply. I buy coffee each morning at the small shop in town where the barista now nods in recognition, as if I've always belonged here. I wander the shoreline, collecting interesting stones and shells without purpose. I sleep dreamlessly, deeply. Midweek, the settlement money appears in my account. Enough to start over anywhere, to do anything. But I leave it untouched. The house is mine to sell or keep, but I'm not ready to decide its fate yet. Instead, I extend my stay at the cabin for another month. I buy a cheap fishing rod at the local hardware store, something I've never tried before. The owner, a weathered man named Charlie, spends half an hour showing me basic techniques, speaking with the patience of someone who measures time by tides rather than minutes. "You're not from around here," he says, not a question but an observation. "Just passing through," I reply. He nods, understanding something I haven't said. People who come to Pinehaven are usually running from something or looking for something. Sometimes both. I don't answer, but his words stay with me as I take my new rod down to the pier that afternoon. The sun hangs low on the horizon, painting the water in shades of gold and amber. I cast my line awkwardly, recalling Charlie's instructions. The motion becomes meditative after a while. Cast, wait, reel, repeat. I catch nothing, but it doesn't matter. The purpose was never about the fish. My phone rings occasionally. Delilah with updates about the federal investigation. Zare checking if I'm okay. Noah with news about Griffin's disbarment proceedings. I answer briefly, providing little detail about where I am or what I'm doing. "You planning to come back for the trial?" Delilah asks during one call. "Eventually," I say, though I'm not certain it's true. In my mind there are no fantasies of revenge anymore. No visions of watching Camila in court as they detail her crimes. No desire to see her face when they announce her sentence. Those images, once so vivid during the long nights of gathering evidence, have faded like photographs left in the sun. One evening as dusk falls, I find myself back on my driftwood perch. A family plays further down the beach, parents watching their young children dash in and out of the waves, their laughter carrying on the breeze. I observe them with a strange sense of detachment, like watching characters in a film. Their ordinary happiness seems both foreign and familiar. I think about who I was before Camila. Before I became defined as her husband, her support system, her shadow. That person feels distant now, but not entirely lost. Perhaps that's why I came to Pinehaven. Not just to escape what happened, but to rediscover who I am without the roles that defined me for so long. I decide to stay in Pinehaven a while longer. Maybe through the fall. Maybe longer. There's a small vacant storefront in town that caught my eye yesterday. Something about its wide windows facing the harbor stirred an old interest in photography I'd abandoned years ago when Camila's career took precedence. The ocean rolls on, endless and persistent. Waves form and crash in an ancient rhythm that will continue long after all our human dramas have played out. I was her husband, her support, her ghost. But now I am simply myself. And for the first time in 12 years that feels like enough.